You are now tuned into Flipping the Birds, a Philly Sports Network podcast.
What's going on, Eagles fans? Welcome one, welcome all to another episode of Flipping the Birds.
Jalyx Hunt. An interception by the Eagles. He is hit. He's got him again. They've got him back at the 26. He's into the end zone. Touchdown, Eagles.
What's going on, Eagles fans? Welcome all to another episode of Flipping the Birds. I'm Brian Cameron, and Corey, forgive me, you know how bad I am with last names. Alongside Corey Nida. Did I get it right? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you. It completely cut out for some reason. I don't know why. That was weird.
All good, man. How you feeling?
I'm doing well. You know, it's hotter than heck out here. 100 degrees. Yeah, not very comfortable outside, but pretty comfy inside the apartment here. And looking forward to talking some Eagles as we anxiously await training camp in a couple of weeks.
Can't believe the season's already here, but that's what happens when they play late into February, win the Super Bowl. But it's weird. This doesn't feel like a team that anybody needs to be concerned about going into the season, because I feel like the 2017 team was great, right? But it was full of aging veterans. This team, it doesn't have many aging veterans, It has very competent leaders who are always mentally sharpened and ready to go. And I feel like even with them being in the limelight, it's just they're still very much under the radar. I mean, if you ask Madden, they're not the best team in the NFL.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, those rankings and ratings, I know usually there's a couple of head scratchers, but Chris Babos, our fellow comrade at PSN, sent that. And I actually asked if it was satire, because I don't know how they have the Cowboys ranked ahead of the Eagles in the game.
The Dolphins.
The Chiefs, whatever. I mean, it's just still the Patrick Mahomes Chiefs love. But yeah, I mean, hey, being underdog in a video game, continue to be an underdog, even though they absolutely dominated the Chiefs, who are looking to win 3 in a row, and keep your head down. And I love what Nick Sirianni said in one of the most recent episodes of Unscripted and what they have and what the Eagles put out, which is a fantastic series by their media production crew. Basically, Sirianni, said celebration's over, preparation's here. And, being complimented similar to perfume. You don't want to drink it. It's like poison. You want to sniff it or smell it and keep moving. So I think the guys are going to be hungry. And you mentioned there's a lot of young pieces on this roster that are, I'm imagining, just absolutely drooling at the chance to become a starter. Keely Ringo comes to mind. We're going to talk about some of the edge rushers here tonight. But, yeah, there's a really fun group of youth highlighting this Eagles roster.
And, yeah, I mean, it's like you mentioned, we'll be talking about the pass rushers. But I think that's what the nucleus has become, right? It's how he's gotten really good, and a lot of people are catching on to it, where offensively, they're all signed to long-term contracts. The offense has not had any major additions as opposed to the defense. Offensively, it just has. I mean, we added some offensive linemen, right? We added AJ Dillon. Jahan Dotson is still here, but outside of that, it's the same core. But defensively, it's a rotating door. Last year you had Darius Slay, Quinyon Mitchell. This year you have Quinyon Mitchell, possibly Keely Ringo, Adoree Jackson. You had Josh Sweat, you had Milton Williams. Now you're looking at possibly having a bigger role for guys like Jalyx Hunt, Ajiz Ojulari, who I can't pronounce his last name. I love him to death because I think that's going to be a great addition. Josh, it's the last names for me. Josh Uche?
Yeah, Uche.
Okay. So there's some key ingredients there, right? But let's talk about the edge rushers. One specifically first, Jalyx Hunt. A lot of people were concerned, we lost Josh Sweat. we lost Brandon Graham. The edge rushers are not going to be as great. Nolan Smith had a great year last season. He came on very strong in from beginning to end. But Jalyx Hunt, a lot of people are saying that this is going to be a breakout season. Some people are comparing him actually as well to Jeremiah Trotter. How do you feel about his upbringing within the Eagles system and what he could bring to the table this upcoming season?
Yeah, I mean, I love what I saw from Jalyx Hunt. I'm also a sucker for underdog stories. I mean, this is a kid that started out at Cornell, didn't have a lot of hype surrounding him out of high school, although he was an extremely talented high school athlete, played football, basketball, did the high jump, long jump, and triple jump in track and field. And then he was actually a safety with Cornell, then moved over to Houston Christian, where he moved to the edge spot in 2022. So this is a kid who is still really raw and inexperienced playing at this position. And he just came on like gangbusters at the end of the season. And I think it really has helped the Eagles trade Bryce Huff, despite the huge contract, just because that they've got Hunt. In the wings waiting. In the playoffs, he was one of the best edge rushers of any edge rusher in the postseason. He had 2 sacks, 6 hurries, 9 pressures. Lane Johnson complimented him a few weeks ago during mandatory minicamp, saying that he's got all the tools. He's gained some weight. He thinks he's going to have a breakout year. And, I mean, Johnson and Jordan Mailata, they would have a pretty good idea of what Hunt looks like going against him in OTAs, that mandatory training camp, and now when training camp happens in a couple of weeks. You see the reports about Jalyx. There was a play where he was able to beat Jordan Mailata and got a quote-unquote sack on Hurts. And then another time he was able to get around the edge, and he just kept chasing Hurts like a schoolboy on a playground. And I think he can kind of bring this Brandon Graham energy to the team in a role where I think he's going to kind of try and fill some of those snaps lost by BG. I mean, I know Nolan Smith has the job when he comes back fully healthy, but man, Jalyx Hunt, he has been really fun to watch last year. I think he's going to have an increased workload, obviously. He's not a BG, he's not Josh Sweat, but he definitely has made some noise in OTAs, and I think he checks all the boxes when it comes to putting somebody in that category of who will be a breakout player. And Jalyx Hunt, to me, kind of screams that.
And what I like about Jalyx Hunt, and actually the Jalyx Hunt Nolan Smith combination, is that they have that extra swagger. They have, like, it feels like they're the upbringing of Brandon Graham as opposed to Josh Sweat. Josh Sweat, you loved seeing him play. And I'm not trying to dog on his personality at all. But Sweat was a little off at times, especially after the Super Bowl where he felt like he should have been Super Bowl MVP. Like, you just won a Super Bowl. Like, celebrate that. Just, celebrate as a team, right? But you got Hunt and Nolan Smith who just – it feels like they're bringing the Broad Street bully mentality back to the link. And it feels like with Jalen Carter in the middle, Jordan Davis, these two are going to be staples for years to come. And Hunt being, you said it right there, like, he's still very much a raw product. And when you said that, I instantly thought about Jalen Carter. Jalen Carter is not an expert in his position at the moment, but he is getting better. And got to think, once these guys know their position that well, how dangerous they're going to be going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Hunt's only 24, and as we mentioned, the inexperience. He's only going to learn and get better. I mean, he's surrounded by a lot of young, talented players. You still have a couple of veterans on this defense. And I think most importantly, these young players are gravitating towards the old man of Vic Fangio. And I don't mean old man in a negative way. It just, he is a wily veteran. And we heard all these reports coming out of Miami of, it was a terrible combination between Fangio and the defense of the Dolphins, and the younger players going to resonate with him. How is he ever going to resonate with the young defense last year? Well, it took training camp and the preseason and about 4 regular season games to turn this defense into arguably the best defensive unit in the NFL last year. And it culminated in that absolute beatdown against the Kansas City Chiefs, where I mean, that score to me is still, that's not the real score. To me, those garbage touchdowns, sure, yeah, that's the final score, but the way that the Eagles were absolutely able to manhandle Kansas City in every asset on the defensive side and offensive side, it's a lot of fun. And if you're an Eagles fan, you have to be excited with what this young core can bring, especially defensively.
I completely agree with that, and it seems like they're only getting younger, right? We praise Jalyx Hunt. His stock has been actually rising throughout this period, and they've been speaking very highly of him. But there's still, like I mentioned before, I feel like there's still underrated names in there. And last year I screwed up by having an early crush on Devin White, and it failed me miserably. He didn't make it to anywhere with the team. But Ajizo Ojulari, I mean, there has to be something great there. He's a Georgia Bulldog. He was productive with the Giants, right? And you're coming to Philly where he's with his boys, he's with his guys, and we've seen the production that Vic Fangio was able to get out of Nolan Smith, out of BG, out of Josh Sweat, out of Milton. Like, this kid has to be fitting into the mix somehow, some way, and actually being a productive addition. I mean, I pray that he ends up having an Alshon Jeffrey position where you come in on a 1-year deal, they extend you like towards the end of the season, and you're stuck here for another 3 or 4 years, being that he's only 25 years old. But who out of the pass rusher group, who's your guy that you feel like Eagles fans should really keep their eyes on during training camp and even at the start of the season?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's Ojulari here. I mean, you mentioned our Georgia Bulldog. He's very close with Nolan Smith, former second-round pick by the Giants in 2021. So he clearly had talent coming out of college. He played in all 17 games as a rookie, made 13 starts in his first year with the Giants, and actually broke the Giants record for most sacks in a season by a rookie with 8. And he also added 13 QB hits. The problem with Ojulari is that he has been injured. Since that rookie season, he's played in 29 of the possible 51 games played with 14 sacks. So I'm thinking Howie Roseman looked at this guy, said, we're going to take a flyer on him. The Giants didn't want him anymore. He was kind of the odd man out, was able to sneak back in thanks to some injuries on the Giants' defensive front. But now you've got a guy that is hungry to prove himself again. And what better team to go to than the Philadelphia Eagles for a guy like Ojulari is going to be a tongue twister. But to go to the Eagles after seeing what Zach Bond just did, where he was kind of under the radar, not really performing, playing out of position maybe with the Saints, learns a new position and cashes in on life-changing money. Now, I'm not saying that could happen again here, but I think that this guy can really be a nice rotational piece. And maybe that's what keeps him healthy is, hey, you're going to be our third option behind Smith and Hunt. Go in there, just pin your ears back and get to the quarterback. And I think he could be a really solid option in that role. He's 6'3", 250 pounds. He's not going to wow anybody with his pass rush moves, but he uses his arm length to shed the block, and hopefully he can kind of get back to that rookie season. And, man, if he does, that is going to be a home run sign from Howie Roseman for yet another year.
And it's kind of like Ron K says, a player moves from the Giants to the Eagles, expect them to play like an all-pro. Saquon Barkley being and he's got to be the best signing in like recent history. At one point I thought it was Hassan Reddick, but he played himself out of Philadelphia. Not to segue not too much off the topic, but in recent memory, who do you feel like is the better, like, how can I say this, the best signing in Eagles franchise history as a free agent?
Man, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to argue against Barkley with what he did. I know it's just one season. You can't expect him to go for 2,000 yards. What'd you say?
Take Barkley out the picture then.
I know, man. It's tough, especially free agency, because I know, they've made some decent trades because A.J. Brown was basically acquired for a bag of footballs. T.O., that was a trade.
Wait, was T.O. a trade? I thought T.O. was a free agent signing.
I thought he was a trade.
Is he?
So I it's tough, man.
Slay was a
Yeah,
trade.
because I believe there was a trade because it was supposed to go. The Ravens were in line, and then it got shot down. Unless I'm mixing that up.
I could have sworn he was a free agent, or am I losing my mind? Now I'm curious.
Nope, I'm sorry. No, yeah, the Ravens got their second round pick. Yep, in exchange for the rights for Owens, and it was a $49 million. So it was like a almost like a trade and sign type of deal.
Interesting.
So Ron K mentioned Slay was a good signing. I would say he panned out pretty well. Yeah, I mean, Howie Roseman's done a really good job over the last couple of years in that regard. And now GMs aren't going to hit 1,000 every time with these signings. And,
Definitely.
One of these guys might be a complete bust, but you can't be mad with the price tag. So I'm all here for it.
Yeah, and it feels like Howie's been in his bag for quite some time in recent memory, and it's just been doing nonstop damage one way or another, finding potential wherever he can, and the coach is maximizing off of it. Tim Sullivan saying it was a 3-team deal with Ravens and Niners. I could have sworn it was a free agent signing, but
it was a trade, and then they extended him.
Yeah. Okay. So speaking of trades, right? We know who the Eagles have in-house. There's still room for improvement. Although I feel like I'm more than content with going with Aziz Al-Jawlari, Josh Uche, what's his name, Nolan Smith, and Jalyx Hunt. And I'm pretty sure that they'll throw an undrafted free agent or a veteran free agent at some point. But if the Eagles were to make a move, or in addition to this pass rushing group, do you feel like it would make sense for them? And if it does make sense for them, who are you targeting if you're Howie Roseman?
I mean, I think it depends on how training camp kind of shakes up. I wouldn't be expecting them to maybe bring in a big name guy until they see how these young guys kind of pan out. Because you mentioned Uche, and we haven't really talked about him, but he also has a pretty high ceiling. It's a guy who had 11.5 sacks 3 years ago with New England, and has struggled to kind of produce. He was a healthy scratch for the Chiefs during the Super Bowl, and he kind of admitted that it was a tough transition for him going to a new team during the middle of the season. And it just sounded like it wasn't really a great fit. So now he has a chance to start fresh with a new defense, get his hands on the playbook. And they got other depth. I mean, Antoine Powell-Ryland Jr. out of Virginia Tech, a lot of guys were saying that he could be a steal from this draft. I mean, he put up ridiculous numbers at Virginia Tech. He had 25.5 sacks over his last 2 seasons. He originally started out as a Florida Gator. He's a little undersized, but he could provide some depth. We talk about Nolan Smith. I think what's interesting before we get into like the pieces of who we can possibly add if you're Howie Roseman is that this is a very boomer bust edge pass rusher group that Howie Roseman has put together in quite some time. It feels like Howie usually likes to know what he's getting, have experienced pass rushers. We've seen him make signings, make deals to get proven players. And this year they're just saying, hey, let's let the young kids ball out. Let's see what we've got. And if they could get solid production and replace the production of BG and Sweat, they're going to do it on the cheap. And it's still coming out to be the same production, if not a little bit better with these young players. So I'm not sure if they're going to make a move. I mean, if you look around the best edge free agents available, I know Zadarius Smith is still around. Matt Judon, I believe, is still a free agent. Von Miller, he could be kind of a veteran presence, if you will. Shaq Barrett. I don't think a lot of these guys really move the needle for me, per se. I think I would just like to see what these guys in-house can do and feed off each other, because it's very evident that Nick Sirianni and his staff have been able to cultivate a culture with competition, and it has brought out the best in the team in the last 3 years.
There's a player that's been rumored that the Eagles are in on, and he's been tied to the Eagles for quite some time. Just so happens to be a Georgia Bulldog.
Another one, you don't say.
Trayvon Walker of the Jaguars. They exercise his 5th-year option. He's due for an extension. Is this a player that you feel like? I mean, the Eagles have quite the amount of draft picks upcoming, if I'm not mistaken. With a plethora, I feel like a 3rd-round picks or 4th-round picks, if I'm not mistaken, as well. It feels like this is the kind of move that Howie will make. This is the AJ Brown of this year, right? This is the guy that you trade for, and then he becomes a franchise pillar for 3 or 4 years, kind of like Darius Slay was. And also solidifies a position of need. You can rotate a guy like Ajiza Ojulari. You can rotate Jalyx Hunt with him. You can rotate, Nolan Smith. Like this makes your edge rushing group that much more fiercer. Is this a move that you feel like makes sense for them? Or is this one of those dream scenarios where it's kind of like, yeah, Eagles Twitter is doing their thing and they're just rounding up any rumors that they want to put out there and AI is working at its best?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I would love, I think any team would love to bring in a talent like Trayvon Walker. The guy has put up 20.5 sacks in the last 2 seasons. I think some of it is also just we're in the dog days of summer in terms of the NFL season where we're just itching to talk about anything Eagles related. I don't know what the price tag would be. Jacksonville doesn't seem like they're in a competing window, but they also play in a pretty poor division in the AFC South where Tennessee is going to be really bad. Houston, I think they're going to be solid. They'll probably win that division. I think CJ Stroud bounces back. And then you've got the Colts, who are kind of a question mark with Anthony Richardson. So I don't know what it would take to get a guy like Walker. But yeah, I mean, that would be a phenomenal move by Howie Roseman. That would be another home run type of move. I just don't know if the Jaguars are even interested in doing that. So that's the tough part. It takes 2 to tango for a trade. And if one team is just saying, hey, he's not available, well, then all these rumors and speculation on social media can just kind of blow in the wind because it doesn't really matter.
If there's a guy out there right now that you could add to the Eagles, who you adding in the pass rushing group?
Putting me on the spot here.
Affordable. Let's make it at least affordable. I'm not asking for a fantasy trade now.
Yeah, I don't like. There's some of these free agents like
even trading.
Man, oh man!
That just opened up the whole field with the trade options.
Yeah, like the trade. I mean, there's endless possibilities. Sheesh. I mean, it wouldn't happen, but I think is it TJ Watt?
I mean, he was have like the best odds of getting him at one point.
I'm not sure, but it was. I mean, I think he's just he fits the Eagles. You know what I mean? Like hard nosed, gonna just absolutely bring it. Yeah, you see Tim saying the Watt or Hendrickson. Hendrickson would be good. I know everybody's saying, oh, the Eagles have no chance at Hendrickson, but the longer that that situation goes, because I don't think they've resolved it yet, the longer that it goes, I think the better chance that the Eagles have it. So, I mean, reports are coming out that they lowballed him at $28 million. I mean, this guy has been an all-pro edge and an absolute franchise pillar, and you're lowballing him. So I would imagine that this guy might be like, yo, I'm out, trade me. And then that's when Howie Roseman can work his magic. So Tim and I are kind of on the same wavelength there. I mean, if it's not a fantasy trade, like you'd have to obviously give up some significant pieces in draft capital. But I mean, if there's somebody right now in the NFL that I think could just absolutely make this Eagles team even more insanely impressive than they already are, it would be him.
So as of June 11th, this is a report from Ed Cracks on TJ Watt and Trey Hendrickson. So TJ Watt Bet Online gave the Eagles a 3-1 shot to be the next team for TJ Watt. The best odds of any NFL team. The next favorite was the 49ers, who had 4-1 odds. Trey Hendrickson, though, Eagles are – you guys got to forgive me. Eagles are actually behind the Patriots in those odds. So they're 9-2 odds, if I said that right. Lions being the favorites. So maybe the TJ Watt it's not a pipe dream after all.
No, I mean 9-2 is not awful, but it's not like there's no chance. But you know, I again, it's going to take a lot. You know, either a bunch of high draft picks or one of the younger edge rushers and kind of a swap. You know, Watt is what's he? How old is he here? He is 30. So I mean, not old by any means, but definitely not as young as some of these other guys.
Yeah. And I feel like Watt, I mean, he went down with injury last year, if I'm not mistaken. Did he or not? Did he not?
Watt? No, he played all 17 games last year.
Okay. It would be a hell of a move, right? I mean, a huge
2022 was when he got hurt. He played in 10 games.
It would be a wild move for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you know, nothing surprises me with Roseman. I mean, when he made that AJ Brown deal and for what little he gave up, and, you know, AJ Brown was already on the cusp of being a top 10 wide receiver as it was heading into that season. So, but I like what they got at edge rusher, man. I mean, I think a lot of these fans will be excited to see some of these young guys. I think there will be some frustration maybe, but it's not going to be a Huff situation where it's like, oh my God, we gave, you know, they gave them this much money. These two guys are coming in on the cheap. $4 million for Olujare and, you know, it was cheap for Uche as well. So, I mean, you know, Ojulari for me, I think is my front runner to be the third guy to rotate. And I mean, to be honest, I mean, the Eagles need one of those two guys to step up. I mean, if both completely flounder, then they're going to be in some serious trouble. Then they probably will make a move.
Yeah, I think Ojulari, if he could bring the same attitude he had in New York, right? But like you mentioned, like he's been injury prone, but in here, you're working with a rotation. You don't have to be the guy. You just got to show up when your number's called. And I feel like that's been such a great thing when it comes to defense for the Eagles. Are you in any way worried about this defensive line going into the season because of the loss of Milton Williams, Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham? Or do you feel like, hey, like it's about time we got the young nucleus going, and they're gonna make enough noise to make things happen?
Yeah, I mean, I'm cautiously optimistic. Last year, I was pretty worried. You know, I told people going into the season that I thought the defense was going to be a little problematic just because of the unknowns. Like, yes, we knew Quinyon was good in college. Yes, we knew Cooper was good in college. Jalen Carter ideally would take a next step. He did. Jordan Davis even improved. So all those check marks that needed to be checked off, they were. So now it's like, okay, we've seen one wave of youngsters do it. Why can't this second wave do it? I think one of my bigger concerns is regarding Jahad Campbell and when will he be fully healthy and will he be ready for the first game of the season? I know the timeline's kind of up in the air still. They're saying like maybe late July, August. I wouldn't be surprised if Campbell isn't as impactful to start like Quinyon and Cooper were. So that's something that I'm kind of keeping my eye out for. But no, this defensive line, I mean, Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, if Davis could continue to kind of add that pass rush factor into his game, which he kind of flashed near the end of last season in the postseason, I mean, these guys I think are going to be fine. It's a tough schedule, but I think overall this defense, they know what they need to do. The guys are hungry. They're super close, and it's just a really good, close-knit group.
I know. I mean, one thing you left out with the defensive tackle group, Ojomo. I mean, I feel like Milton Williams is going to be missed. I would never take that away from Milton, right? But I feel like Milton was a great product of his environment, and I feel like Ojomo fits that perfectly. We did see those, strides here and there from him last season. He looked, he looked like he could play the part for sure. Jordan Davis has slimmed down significantly, and for all we know, this could be a breakout year for him after years of people kind of shaming him for his weight. It could be a good season defensively. I'm always optimistic when it comes to defense because I feel like, being haunted by the years of Ronald Darby, Jalen Mills, finger wagging, even though he, allowed a 20-yard touchdown pass. Those things still haunt me until this day. But defensively, it just feels like, it could be a secure group as long as everybody does play their role. We did have a question earlier in the chat from Ron. He did say, is Jalen Ramsey still available? Would be great opposite Quinyon. He is still available, but was Ramsey one of the guys that spoke out against Fangio? Or was he the one that posted like the Kick Rocks picture or something I saw on Twitter?
I think Ramsey does not like Fangio at all. I'm trying to look it up real quick, but I'm pretty sure there's beef between them.
Yeah, I think he mentioned that.
Ramsey apparently was quoted saying he won't ever forgive the dude.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
But forgive him for what?
I'm trying to pull up the tweet here. Hang on, where is it here?
The whole story. You pull that up?
Disappeared.
Ty Robinson as well, the rookie, in the middle, who I feel like is going to be. He's gonna be nasty.
I was gonna mention him. I said we didn't talk about him in that, but Ty Robinson. I mean, there's really positive reports coming out of camp. That relative athletic score that has become a really important and kind of telling metric of these prospects. He scored a 9.91. So that ranks 18th out of over 1,800 defensive tackles since 1987. So, you could put whatever stock you want in that score or that metric, but comparing it since 1987, he's a top 20 defensive tackle with all those metrics that take account into that score. So I remember seeing videos of Robinson during the training camp and OTAs. I mean, this guy just looks like an absolute mauler. So you team him up next to Jalen Carter as a rotational piece. I think this D-line is going to be more than just fine.
Can Ty Robinson be the Cooper DeJean at the other defensive line? Are we going to see that this year?
Hey, man. Yeah, I can't remember. There's a couple of good ones, obviously, but yeah, right in the middle of the line there. One of the more familiar ones that I always think of back in the day was Tony Saragusa from the Ravens.
That draws a blank for me. I'm not even gonna lie.
Man, yeah, big Tony Saragusa.
6'6", 300 pounds. That's insane, dude. Like that shouldn't be
They call
allowed.
him the Vanilla Gorilla.
I mean, we got to see an exciting Whites episode with him at some point soon. Like it's just gonna, it has to happen.
I think so, because he could be the third.
Like it seems like he could be the Coop of the defensive line, and I'm all for it. I mean, every year the Eagles have a standout defender. Last year we had two, but obviously I think Coop definitely took the torch with that Super Bowl interception. Quinyon Mitchell, I feel like still very overlooked because he had a phenomenal season. He was locked down from nearly, I could say, the entire year. But Coop definitely still needs to go.
I agree. I mean, Quinyon almost gets penalized because of how good he was. Quarterbacks just didn't throw to him. So you didn't hear his name during NFL broadcasts. You didn't see him on replays. But that goes to show you just how damn good Quinyon Mitchell was as a rookie. And he's only going to get better. So I think also Quinyon just likes to be in the shadows a little bit. Cooper is almost like on a Jason Kelsey run right now. I mean, he is everywhere. He is absolutely everywhere. So,
Did you
I mean,
see him
and
sign
for
the
good
Patrick
reason.
Mahomes card?
Yeah, he signed "Go Birds" on the Mahomes card. That was great.
But I mean, with those two in the defense, I feel like we could kind of talk about quarterbacks really quick. I'm oddly because I know a lot of people are very optimistic about Keely Ringo, and I applaud it. He's young. We've seen good strides from him, but we're talking about him going into a full-time role. Are you confident in that kind of move, or are you saying like, hey, like there's a chance that Adoree Jackson jumps over him, Eli Ricks, or do you think Ringo is that guy for that CB2 role?
I mean, I think Ringo has the best physicality and physical traits of everybody that's competing with him. He showed some flashes in the limited time that he's played, and I just loved what I heard from him in his interview during OTAs. I mean, this is a kid that just is eager to learn. And a lot of people might forget he's still super young. I mean, he kind of came out early
He's like
from
22,
college.
right?
He's only 22.
Yeah.
I mean, he would have been one of the youngest corners coming out of this draft, if I'm not mistaken. And I just think that I think Ringo can be really good. I like what I've seen from him. Like I said, I love what he said during his press conference. Just has a really good head on his shoulders. And yeah, I don't know if he's going to be locked down like Quinyon Mitchell was, but I mean, Ringo, I think is like 6'4" or something. Like he's a pretty big, tall dude. So you
He's
can
gonna
line
be
him
very
up
visible.
against, like you can sign him up against some taller, bigger wide receivers, and I think he's going to be able to hold his own.
He's definitely be extremely busy with Slade not being there. So he's 6'2", 207 pounds. We're really gonna see what we have in him because like you mentioned before, Quinyon Mitchell, he didn't get celebrated so much because he wasn't picked on as much. They're still not gonna pick on him because they know who he is. But with Ringo out there, it's kind of like he's an anomaly. Nobody knows what he's gonna bring to the table. So it could either go really good or it could go really bad. But I'm dead center. I'm not optimistic. I'm not pessimistic about it. It's just let's see what he has. But at the same time, I wish that they did bring a veteran I know they brought Adoree Jackson, but a guy like I wish Slade stayed for another year. Or a guy of that nature to stay within this group, to be that veteran presence in the room. If they were to trade for Jalen Ramsey and Jalen Ramsey, apologized to Vic, if that was even on the table, then great. But it seems like they're dead set with their cornerback group at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at some of the available free agents right now. You've got Asante Samuel Jr., Rasul Douglas, who would have a return, Stephon Gilmore, Kendall Fuller. Those are kind of the top guys right now, and then it kind of trails off a bit. But
I would like an Asante Samuel Jr. move. I mean,
yeah,
he's not his father, but he's still a very serviceable cornerback. I think he went down with an injury last year, if I'm not mistaken. Would be good to have him in Philadelphia. I know they can take this with a grain of salt, but rumors have it that they've been keeping their eye on Asante Samuel Jr., which I feel like would be a great piece for this cornerback group. A lot of guys compete. If Ringo isn't the guy, who in-house do you feel like is the guy at cornerback too?
I mean, I think it's gonna have to be Adoree Jackson. That's who I think is got to be. Maybe Eli Ricks. Eli Ricks has some youth and some athleticism. He's also 6'2", just under 190 pounds. Again, really young. This is his third season already. He's only 23. So, I mean, the Eagles have an embarrassment of riches in terms of young, youthful players. So, I think Ricks can be a possibility as well. It's just a matter of how many young guys do you want on one defense? Like, it was a little worrisome to come into the season last year where you had two rookies and DeJean and Quinyon. And I know DeJean took a little bit longer to get ready because he was dealing with some injuries. But how many NFL defenses really thrive when you've got more than 3 or 4 rookies playing at the same time? I mean,
Exactly.
eventually the league is going to exploit them unless you have hit home runs, and the Eagles obviously did last year with Quinyon and Cooper. So I think one of those guys needs to step up, just like we talked about in the edge rushers there. I like that Adoree Jackson brings veteran presence. I don't think he's going to be a shutdown corner, but God forbid if, Ringo can't get it done or Ricks is struggling, you could kind of just plug Jackson in and he'll limit the damage. I mean, I'm not saying he's going to be a ball hawk, but he's been around the block where it's not, oh my God, the sky is falling. We just have a complete hole over on the other side of Quinyon Mitchell right now.
Yeah, I think he'll be good serviceable. It's a good, again, presence to have for a guy like Ringo. It's just, it's the Eagles defense doesn't really have too many holes, right? Like we spoke about the defensive line, we spoke about the edge rushers. Cornerback group, Keely Ringo is a big question mark. But like you mentioned, Adoree Jackson is there, Eli Ricks is there. There's one player that I'm there's a huge question mark on. Sidney Brown. I feel like it's make or break, right? We don't know what we have in him. He's been very injury prone. Last year he was his role was overtaken with forgive me for McCullum. Yeah.
McCullum.
Yeah. And it was a big question mark because we didn't know, like, is Sidney Brown on the bubble or not. And when he's on the field, he's a flying missile, and he's great. He's a heat seeker. Wherever the ball is, he's there. And he seems like he's the guy you want starting in your defense because of his attitude. He doesn't back down to anybody. But how do you feel about Sidney Brown going into this year with Vic Fangio's system, year 2? This is year 2 of Fangio, if I'm not mistaken, right? Or is it year 3?
Yeah, I mean, because Brown and what was really telling was the way Fangio kind of talked about Sidney Brown, because he was asked, hey, does Sidney have the inside track for this other safety position after, what he showed in 2023? And Fangio kind of said, well, that was 23. Like that doesn't really matter for what we need now. And I don't think Fangio has really trusted Sidney Brown right now. And we can't forget Brown has kind of been behind the 8 ball because of the injuries. He couldn't practice until October 7th last year. It's kind of similar to what Cooper DeJean was going through, but it wasn't really the same. He didn't really have a significant role until week 6. And during that, I mean, he was behind everybody else. So, and not just behind, he was pretty far behind just trying to catch up. So, I mean, I think that was a big reason why we haven't seen him. And another big reason is Vic Fangio. He's been pretty adamant. He's going to put the guys out on the field that he likes and that he trusts. So if you're not in that, so to speak, circle, well, it's going to be really hard to get in unless injuries force you in to try and take over that role. So I'm excited to see what Sidney Brown can do. You see here from Duck that, yeah, he's a missile, but he doesn't really have tact. And I think that's the biggest thing for him is he kind of has to slow it down a little bit. I think he kind of he reminds me of like a Troy Polamalu in a sense where he was just always running 100% full speed, and you get hurt that way, especially guys are bigger, they're stronger. Mm-hmm. I think if Brown kind of dials it back a little bit, I think he could be a nice piece. I think Makuba probably has the inside track right now, just based on him being.
Is he not signed yet?
Hmm?
Is he not signed yet? Because that's what Duck I mentioned.
Yeah, I guess not. Holy cow. I thought he did because I saw Campbell did it, but man, I don't know what they're waiting for.
I thought that all the Eagles rookies had signed their contracts.
I did too, but I mean, I know Campbell was one of the later ones as well, but yeah, I'm not seeing it right now. Yeah, he's the only player still remaining. So, not exactly sure what the hang up is, but yeah, you kind of want him to take care of that.
That's very interesting. Wow, okay. That's very interesting. I completely forgot about him, honestly. But he's drawn comparisons to the Honey Badger, by a lot of scouts. Could be the guy lined up in the role, but I've always been very curious about Sidney Brown because we were all high on Sidney Brown at one point, right? He was, we wanted him in the draft. They got him in the draft. He was one of their five-star recruits. Or is that what they call it, a red star player? And he just fit the mold. And it's just weird to see him kind of go the Kayvon Wallace route, where it's like we had him on the pedestal and he's completely just fallen off the radar and possibly off of the roster at the end of training camp. So that means, those are the key parts of the defense. I feel like we've had question marks. We didn't really talk about the linebacker position. It's been held down by Zach Bond. Jeremiah Trotter Jr. is there. You did mention your concerns about Jahad Campbell and when he's going to be available to play. I know that they mentioned August that, is when his expectations kind of get ramped up. It could be another Nakobe thing. It could be a Nakobe Dean thing. But who's to know? With Campbell on this roster, I mean, David wrote a great article. He was kind of comparing Campbell to Patrick Willis and Willis and Navarro Bowman from the 49ers. Do you see that kind of potential with this linebacker core of Bond and Campbell going into the future? I don't want to say next season because, again, it's rookie season. Things always go, downhill sometimes. But do you see that for the future with this group?
I mean, those are pretty big names. Patrick Willis and Bowman, they were legitimate enforcers. I think you would like to think that's the possibility, but you're looking at Willis, a Hall of Famer, and Bowman has had a fantastic career in his regard. I think it's just too early to tell. The similarities maybe in terms of physicality and playing style. Zach Bond, he was a tackling machine, and I think that's what they were missing in 23 because it just was such, or 22, it was just such a bad tackling team. Like there's so many missed tackles. And Bond kind of brought that mentality back with Vic Fangio, and then that became contagious. So I would reserve saying, I'm not disagreeing with David's comparison in terms of maybe like
David, as soon as we finish the podcast, I'm texting him, letting him know you completely disagree with him and call them out on it.
Yeah, it would be great. Campbell, a lot of, again, it's like, oh my goodness, here we go again, another draft where somehow the NFL allows a stud player to slip to the Eagles late in the
how he's
draft.
paying off the league.
So all signs indicate that Campbell could be a stud. Hopefully he just is able to remain healthy and the injuries he's dealing with right now will be behind him and he can still be on the field learning and everything, which I think is huge. We saw reports that he was at least still on the field, helmet on, kind of in the huddle, walking around, learning, which is a big deal, which is something I think going back to our point with Sidney Brown, he wasn't really able to do that with the concussion and everything. So, I like this linebacking core. Be interested to see what kind of step Jeremiah Trotter Jr. takes this year. He kind of played a small role, but was able to make an impact on some special teams plays. So I think, we'll be good, as David either has been listening the whole time or heard his ears ring when I said that. All love, David.
Shout out to David's wife. It's her birthday today, so happy birthday to his wife. You should not be on Twitter right now. You should be going to celebrate.
Dang. That's commitment right there.
But yeah, that's been the nucleus of the defense. Before we end the show, one player that you feel like everybody needs to keep their eye on heading into training camp when it comes to this defense?
That's a good question. I'm looking at the depth chart here.
I find it a little weird that if David's wife's name is Crystal, my wife's name is also Crystal. So me and Dave has to have a long talk after this call. I mean, after this podcast.
I think I think Ty Robinson. I mean,
Okay.
I just think, I don't know what kind of role he's going to have here. I mean, we all know that Keely Ringo is a guy to watch. Makuba is going to be a guy to watch. I'm trying to think of somebody that isn't really on the radar right now, and from reports have looked really good. And Ty Robinson kind of screams at me with his physicality and his size. So, and he's right now behind Ojomo on that left DN spot. So, I mean, you would like to think that Ojomo will take the spot and take another step, but if he doesn't and Ty Robinson's able to take over, I mean, you're looking at a 6'5", 288-pound beast coming at you. So we'll see how he pans out during training camp. But, yeah, I'll go with Ty Robinson, kind of go off the beaten path.
Okay, that's fair. I'm going to swing for the fences and mention a player that we did not bring up. And, I'm terrible with freaking names. Oh, my laptop is dying too on the same time, so I'll be quick. Smile Mondon Jr.
Yeah.
Could be a guy that that comes in, 22 years old, 6'2", 224 pounds. He can make a big impact that that nobody sees coming. I feel like and funny, Doug mentioned him right there. Who's gonna be a good rotational safety? Not Smile, right?
I mean, he's a linebacker. I don't know if Duck meant to say safety, but I mean,
yeah. But I feel like he's the kind of kid that could possibly step in, kind of that Oren Burks role at some point, and just make some type of noise. But I'm definitely swinging for the fences with that one.
Yeah, no, I mean, and that's the fun of it, the anticipation, the optimism of a new season. And there's a lot to be excited about. They won the Super Bowl. I think it also gives them a little leeway because they just won it, where if they go into the season and they have a slow start, which I don't think anybody should be panicking about, but it can happen again, that they're kind of right where they need to be. So, and again, they're rolling the dice a little bit with some of these younger guys. So you may see some growing pains. You may be watching a game and see a guy get burnt on a route or you miss a tackle. But at the end of the day, we saw what Vic Fangio can do with his defense from last year. He's got another year with the core of these guys. You get these new prospects and new rookies coming in. And a lot of them come from winning programs. They're hungry. They want to learn. You hear them in the press conference. I know a lot of it's coached up jargon, but you get the sense that there's nobody. It's like, well, I don't know about this guy. Like he kind of seems full of himself, or he doesn't really seem like he's a team guy. Like they have built such a strong culture that even if you kind of bring in a guy like that, I think it quickly gets washed out.
I completely agree, man. And it's gonna be a very interesting training camp. A lot of talented guys, that can make the roster. A lot of talented guys that may not make the roster just because all the talent that's on this roster. But we're definitely back, and we'll be back with you guys next Tuesday. I appreciate Corey jumping on Flipping the Birds this season as well as David. So you'll see a bit of rotation between David, Corey, myself, and Morgan. And I'm squeezing Liam in one way or another, whether it's through blackmail, whether it's through threats. He's gonna be on the show at some point. But we appreciate you guys for joining us. I'm Brian Cameron alongside Corey Naito, and we're Flipping the Birds.
Take care, guys.
Go Birds.